Welcome to Women Winning Divorce. I am your host, Heather Quick. I am an attorney, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Florida Women's Law Group, the only divorce firm for women by women. I love thinking big, thinking outside the box, creating creative solutions for women, and empowering women to win in all aspects of their life. Our approach at Florida Women's Law Group is to provide women with a strategy to not only achieve their objectives, but win at life. I believe that what may show up as adversity is simply an opportunity to change and improve your life. In each episode, I sit down with innovative professionals and leaders who are focused on how you can be your best self before, during, and after divorce. In these conversations, we are looking at how women can win at life. I have the unique opportunity to meet women when they are at a transition period of life. But that is only the beginning to becoming your best self and winning at life on your terms. With our guests, we enjoy the opportunity to explore ways all women can win and enhance their life, no matter where they are in their journey. Because divorce is just a point in life, not the end and not what defines you, rather a catalyst for your growth. Welcome to this week's episode of Women Winning Divorce. I'm Heather Quick, owner and attorney at Florida Women's Law Group. Today, I'm joined by Julie Cober. Julie is CEO and founder of Free2Be Leadership Coaching Company. Julie works with women entrepreneurs and executives to achieve their goals, both professionally and personally. And Julie is our first international guest. She is based in Toronto, Canada. Welcome.
Thank you. I didn't know I was the first international. I feel so privileged.
Well, you should. We're going to highlight this episode, our first international episode for sure. Well, Julie, welcome to the show. So happy to have you. Our topic today is designing your dream divorce. So this is going to be great. I cannot wait to learn how to do that for our clients. But tell us a little bit about how you got where you are.
Sure. So yeah, by the way, I love the title of this. I just read it right before I jumped on. I'm like, oh, what a perfect title for this podcast. So I spent 28 years in corporate Canada, my entire career in human resources. So I climbed that corporate ladder and 26 or 5 of the 28, I was in leadership roles. And when I made the decision to leave at the end of 2019, I was the chief human resource officer for the Canadian Red Cross. So we hired 35,000 people a year, disaster recovery, really high stress job. So I decided, the last, 8-10 years of my career. And I loved what I did for the majority of my career. I loved being in human resources, which I know is an anomaly. Most people are like you did. Anyway, I loved creating culture. I loved creating programs with my teams where employees could actually really love coming to work and making an impact and having meaningful work and all those things. And that just kind of went away at sort of the back half of my career. And I don't know what it was, around 2015, something changed. And I don't know if you felt it as well, but in our world in HR, we were like, what is going on? What is going on in these workplace cultures, right? What is going on? There was so much toxicity. There was things popping up like racism and fighting on the shop floor, things that you hadn't heard of for years. I was like, what is happening? So we just ended up starting to spend a great deal of our time either fielding harassment complaints. And you as an attorney, Heather, would know that majority of harassment complaints are not legit, right? From an investigative perspective, right? It's really two people that can't get along in the sandbox. It's not true definition harassment. But still, from my team, we have to do all the work. We have to talk to the attorneys. We have to talk to all the people, right? So we were doing a lot of that, which is very draining, very, very emotional, all the things. And then the other big piece of work we ended up doing is terminating, right? Because the volatility of the markets. And if you work for a publicly traded company, right? Like if the profitability isn't there, out go 1,000 employees.
Right.
There was this rhythm of this. And I was like, okay, the higher I got up my mountain, so to speak, I got to the top of this mountain and said, you know what? I'm not loving the view up here, because I was far, far away from being able to help women and help men and help impact them in their careers, is which is what I love to do. So I decided at the end of 2019, I think I can make a much bigger impact and get back to my roots if I go out on my own. So I made the big decision. It took me probably 2 years to really get to the decision to leave. And I started my own leadership company and my own leadership coaching business. So in the beginning, I started working with mainly executive women who were experiencing what I just described and wanting to either get out and start their own businesses like I did, or get a new job. And that was wonderful. And it was one-on-one. And then I decided, you know what, I can't get to that many people this way. So I need to scale. I want to scale. So I opened, we've rebranded it from the intro there. It's now called the Legacy Leadership Academy for Women. And that's where we can provide group coaching. So now we can say the same message to many.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's such a great space. And, I'd love to know, because, right, you started that right in 2019. And then, of course, 4 months later in 2020, everybody changed. And I imagine it was probably a good time to be in that space, help people maybe through all the many changes that occurred.
It was. Yeah. Like when I left at the end of the year, and then, basically we know what happened, right? All hell broke loose in the world. And to be honest with you, at first I was like, oh no, like, what have I done? Because nobody knew.
Yeah.
Is everybody just going to close their wallets and go to their basement, right? Or what's happened, so
right.
Yes, around May, June, it was started to pick up, and people were like, oh my gosh. It really opened people's eyes to saying, you know what, I don't want to put up with this anymore. And in my space, I would get a call probably at least every other day from colleagues, heads of HR all over North America, actually over the world, just sobbing, crying. They don't, because they don't know what to do. Their CEOs don't know what to do. Like, the world is in mayhem. And then I started getting calls from headhunters. And finally, one of my dear friends, I said, what is happening? He's like, Julie, they are quitting. They are dropping like flies. They're leaving. They're not giving any. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to go into that, because I just left that. But right, there were a lot of phone calls of, please help me transition through this. Please, I need to get right out of the profession. I'm going to retire. I want to start my own business, all kinds of things, because COVID really just highlighted what was.
Right. I think it was an impetus to a lot of change for people, because there was a forced change on so many people. And then you got to see the opportunities that existed, and maybe, like, to what you were saying, building up to when you left, the where they were, it's like, now that I have been sent home, or I am able to work remote, I don't want to go back. I don't want to be with those people. I don't like that environment. And I'm sure because it was just such a time of change and, opportunities for many people.
Yeah. And where I live, we just got this stat the other day. So I live north of Toronto. We now are number one in North America. Number one in North America, worst city for traffic. We beat LA and New York now. It's Toronto, LA, and I forget the third one. And we're number 3 in the world. So think of like the big cities in India or China or all that. We are number 3 in the world. So you're looking at probably a 2 to 2.5 hour one way sitting in your car. So that's when they came out of COVID. They're like, I am not doing that anymore.
I'm not doing that anymore. My life, I was missing half my life. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so now businesses are really going, oh gosh, okay, what are we going to do here? Because you're right. They're not coming back.
Right. Because there is so much. And I think, as a business owner, we've had to shift in the way we see working and showing up is different. And we have to adapt if we are going to retain and keep the best people, because there's options now.
Exactly.
That didn't used to exist, because not everybody thought they could be that flexible.
Exactly. And I think that COVID's proven to businesses you can be. And I think COVID has proven to businesses that it's time to look at how we can do this differently. And I
Mhm.
think this is going to be really great for women, because the biggest problem right now in North America is women, beautiful, really high achieving top talent leaving corporate in droves because there's no programs for them to be able to be really good at their job and really good as a parent or
Mhm.
really good in their life, right? Especially as
Yeah.
executives. If you're in the C-suite as a woman, there is nothing out there right now that's allowing you to be a really great mom and a really great executive. So
Mhm.
COVID's brought that in because it's brought some balance.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's
Yeah.
true. And it allows us as business owners to be more flexible, because what it showed us is, at least for me, everybody's really very productive and almost more
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And particularly women. I think that women are looking for flexibility,
Yeah.
and because they do want to do both,
Yeah.
right? It's not like
Yeah.
they just want to just work without a family, and or just have a
Yeah.
family without a career. They want both, but they've got to have that flexibility. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this
They
that
want to work. They want to work and they want to
yeah,
be really good at what they do in their work.
right.
They also want to be really
Absolutely.
good at home, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's so cool as far as what you're doing to, help women certainly get there. Okay, now I got to ask you this. Please mention, we were going to ask when you were talking earlier about, when things started going bad or things in the workplace, and, what
Yeah.
about like men can't behave in the workplace? We
Yeah.
got to touch on this because we're,
Yeah.
women winning divorce. Before we design our divorce, I got to know about that.
Yeah. So this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Like I said, we had been spending years in harassment, termination, and, the last 20% was all the other stuff. And then finally, in my last job, I mean, job job, um, I had to get personally involved within an 18-month period in 3 very high profile complaints. Like, these are the kind that, and you would know, Heather, we had to consult external attorneys. We needed PR people like this. If this had gone awry or there was legitimacy to this and it got out, all those things, this would be front page news in the Canadian newspapers. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Wow.
Like, and at one point, there was nobody on the executive team that understood the enormity of this but me. So finally, I went to the CEO and he's like, okay, da 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 da. So we go through the whole process. I'm handling them myself, and all 3 of them. So all 3 of them are chiefs, all 3 of them are men, and all 3 claims are legit. Like,
Ooh.
in my
Mm.
whole career, in 28 years, I probably had maybe 5 or 6 legitimate harassment complaints, sexual harassment. These were too. Like, normally it's not legit, right? From a definition
Yeah.
perspective, all 3 of these were legit. And I thought to myself, once you go through the trauma and the turmoil of even investigating these, I said to my husband, I don't want to spend my days teaching men how to behave in the workplace. Like, this is ridiculous. These are grown men in their 50s, and this is how they're treating other humans. And they think it's okay.
Wow.
And I'm like, nope, I'm out. Like this, and this is where the workplace had been going. And then I get these 3, it was the universe going, okay, Julie, this is not our path. This is not our
Right.
path. And I'm sure that's still happening to a degree. I don't know
Hmm.
that these men, for whatever reason, felt emboldened. It was actually pretty shocking. But anyway, that's not what I want to do. I didn't sign up to teach grown men how to treat other people.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
said,
Good for you.
this is not the
Yeah.
impact I want to make, right? This is not the impact I want to make. So I decided to leave.
Now, so with your leadership coaching and mentoring, now that is, allowing you the platform to really reach more people, how and when does that just, intersect with like divorce and family law?
Oh yeah, this was so interesting. So when you guys reached out to me, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to talk to these guys.
Yeah. Yay.
Because you know what? What we teach at the Legacy Leadership Academy is really, we work with really ambitious, driven women, only women that want to elevate to the version of themselves that's living their best life on their own terms. That's really important in the work we
Mhm.
do. So basically, what we're doing is we're teaching them how to design their life. So we get a lot of entrepreneurs that want to scale to 6 and 7 figures. So we're teaching them how to do that from a business perspective, but the work that we do here applies to every aspect of your life because we teach you how to design what you want. So you can apply that to a relationship. You can apply that to your health. You can apply that to your children. You can apply that to getting a divorce. It's the same work. And really what you're doing is you're designing the end state. We call them the end states. Like, how do you want this divorce to go? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in this? And we get the women we work with do that. And here's the thing, like coming out of corporate for 28 years, most women are cut off at the neck. They are in their head, they are analytical, they are very driven, they're all in the how, not in the what and the why. They're not in their bodies and feeling a lot of things, right? So we balance both and say, okay, you have the ability to design this however you want, any aspect of your life. So they come in and they pick one area. I sometimes let them pick two from a goal perspective, like one professional and maybe one personal, because what we teach them, they learn it and then it impacts every area of their life. So they don't have to do it over and over and over again. Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's how it transitions. Divorce is all about leadership, right? If you want your divorce to go a certain way, and you want your children to be non-impacted or have a certain experience through this, that's going to take some solid leadership on your part. And that's going to take you, and I've never been divorced, so just caveat, right? I know a lot of people that are. I would coach somebody that was going through a divorce to say, look, it's time to go within and decide how you want to lead from within through this. And let's design what you want this divorce to look like. And how are you going to lead the pieces that you can? Because obviously in divorce, there's probably so many aspects that are completely out of your control. You can't control your spouse or the other person's attorney or all the things that go on, right? Judges, whatever the process is, but you can yourself. So it's really about leading in your life, and divorce is just one aspect of your life.
Absolutely. And it's exactly what you said. Not that, I think we all have a false belief, ideology of how much control we really have, which we know we really don't over others or processes. However, we absolutely have control how we respond and how we want to participate in the process. And I think that is a beautiful thing. And I love that term, like you be the leader, exhibit the leadership in your divorce, because that it will have an impact. It may not change a lot of things, but the important things like how you process it, right? How you show up, how your children respond, and, your future, I think it will pan out, even if you don't see the immediate effects, right, on the day to day, but yet the long-term benefit is absolutely there.
Oh yeah. And think about, so you design this the way you want it to go. And let's say it hits 50, 60% goes that way, because there's going to be things that go awry, but you showed up in a certain way. You kept a promise to yourself, then you showed up a certain way. And that doesn't mean you're not going to have what we call them in my academy, wall kicker days. Like you're going to have bad days, right? Where you want to kick the wall. Like, let's be clear. So, but when you're at the end of this and you've come out and you're going on with your life and you feel really great about how you showed up, think of what that does for your confidence to go out in the world now as a single person or whatnot, right? You've kept promises to yourself all the way along. That's huge. That's integrity.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. And those are sometimes the hardest promises to keep, the ones to ourselves. And so when we do, it does have a very meaningful, lasting impact, I think.
Especially women. We're not always on our own lists, right?
Indeed. Okay. So let's talk about, you mentioned, where you talked about, you weren't going to be the one, teaching men how to behave in the workplace. How do you think that carries over into divorce? And do you see that affects at all with any of your clients as far as how the men behave in a divorce?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I think that it's not anything you have control over, right? We really have very little control over anything except ourselves and how we respond. So how are you going to go into it? So one of the things that we work on a lot in my academy as well is the laws of the universe, right?
Yes.
Balancing masculine and feminine energy.
Love
And
that.
what you put out, like the law of attraction tells us, right? The law of attraction says we're all energy and we vibrate at a certain level, and whatever you put out comes back. So are you coming to the meetings, the mediations, the attorney meetings, all the things, angry, frustrated, in a victim mode, feeling like you're at the mercy of a circumstance? Are you coming in, oh no, okay, hang on, I have control over me, right? This is what I want to achieve from this meeting, but really with respect, right? Like, how are you coming into these events through the divorce? Because however that you're coming in is what you're going to get back. Now, you can come in with all of the higher vibrations and still have a really bad response back. You can't, again, it doesn't happen overnight, but you will see a shift eventually so that it maybe becomes at least a little bit amicable if it's not type of thing, right? And it's not, anything I'm saying here is not easy, believe me, like to come in, especially on such a emotionally charged event. But again, it's a decision. You're making a decision and you have choice. So I think knowing that you can't control that person over there, you can only control yourself. So come in as the leader that you want to be, leading within your life. And think of things like, for me, I would be thinking things like, okay, how do I want to least impact my children through this process? Like for me, I would be putting them before me. And, I often think of my brother. My brother is divorced. And I told him years ago, you need to write a book on how to get divorced, because him and my sister-in-law did exactly that. They never put their son in the middle of anything. He's the most well-adjusted young adult now. They had difficulties and didn't agree on things, but they dealt with it behind the scenes. And my brother said to me, I told him I was coming on this podcast, and he said, I said, remind me, like, what did you do mentally when you went into that? And so this is interesting because he's the man on the side, right? But his wife did the same thing. He said, I decided, because he didn't want this divorce. This was not on his part. He said, I just decided that I was going to pick my battles. And it had to be really big for me to go to war on something, because I just didn't want to impact his son. He didn't want to impact his son. And he said, I knew I couldn't control how his ex-wife was going to act. So I just knew I could just control myself. And there was one thing that was contentious, and he did kind of go to, not war on it, but he did dig his heels in. The rest, he said, you know what, it's not a big enough battle. But it wasn't from a I'm conceding place, because that to me is the type of leadership, right? It was like, no, I don't care enough about that to fight it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's it. Like, you can't control these other people, so don't try.
Right. Because that's a lot of energy that will not produce you any results and really frustrate you and affect you, I think, mentally by that. Right.
Yeah. I think the other, well, sorry, no, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because that was really good. Tell me.
Well, I was going to say that I think a thing that could help through this, it obviously is mindset, right? And so for the people that I know in my life that have been divorced, gone through divorce, some more than once. So I always say to them when they come to me as a friend, I always say, like, what could you look at right now in your situation, even though it's horrific, but in some cases, right? What abundance can you see right now? And of course, if they're mothers, right? Like right away.
Yeah.
I'm like, your children are external evidence that this was supposed to happen. This is part of your journey. You were supposed to be in this marriage. You were supposed to marry this other person. You were supposed to have these children, or you wouldn't have. So there's got to be some things you can glommer onto that's abundant, right? From your marriage. And of course, if you have children, that would be the big one. And I'm like, that's what you need to focus your time on and your energy, is whatever goodness came out of this. Because yes, you've made a huge decision in your life to no longer be married to this person, but it's not all bad, right? Like,
right.
when you can focus in on those, it helps you get through the divorce process, I think.
I do. I think that is, I mean, all of those points are good on,
choosing what impact you wish to have, but then thinking about the mindset and reminding yourself, and if you've never been exposed to those kind of thoughts, like a lot of people haven't, right? They haven't,
Yeah.
no one's ever
Oh,
talked to
yeah.
them about, whatever kind of energy you put out, and they don't understand that.
Mhm.
Which I'm taking notes because I'm like, this is what, my clients do need, because it makes a difference if you can shift your focus, make
Yes.
a little bit of an adjustment, and focus on abundance, focus on gratitude. And I know I have had this conversation with many clients over the years, in when they're dealing with a very difficult husband, when they're going through the divorce, and they do have children. And I'm like, you know what? You got those kids. And so
Yeah.
at the very end of the day, you know, as awful as you think he is, as just as difficult as this process is, and he is, you got the best thing you could have ever got from them. So maybe that's the cross you have to bear. And you just need to accept he is who he is, because you do have the ultimate gift with your children. And, it at
I
least
think,
allows you to center for a moment and think,
yes.
okay,
It will,
you're
like,
right.
because you're in the midst of the muck, right? So like what goodness
Yeah.
could have there had, like, and I always say to people, I know this is really hard, but at at one point in your life, you decided you loved this person and you wanted to spend the rest of your life with them. Let's say that, right? So
Right.
go there. Like, lots of people change, things happen. And I always wonder, I always say to people too, whoever made up the rule that you have to be married for 60, 70, whatever years to the same person, like, who decided that's the rule? It's society, right? Like, I think a lot of women and men too have guilt around these marriages ending, right? Well, maybe it's just run its course and
Yeah.
it's
I
okay.
think when that started was like a really, really long time ago, when
Yeah,
people didn't live that long.
right.
And we had a guest, I know, my producer would remember, but it was fascinating because she was like, it wasn't meant to be forever. Man, people died. And so you got
Right.
remarried, and
And people
it
change.
it
People
was just a
change.
really, exactly. And it was a way to look at it a little lighter, as
Mhm.
far as the stigma, and that really they did get married for economics and to have children to help
Yes.
economically with what
Yeah.
they were doing.
Yeah.
And if, one died, then okay, well, let's get another, because this is part of how the economics part of the marriage works. And then I think I could be misstating. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this episode, but and we'll refer to it in our show notes for sure. Oh yeah, episode 67. Judith Kalinsky was that guest. But then I think it was like she said, then the religion,
Yeah.
they got on top of it. So then all of a sudden it became a whole different focus of what marriage was. And then of course now we idealize it, and we have all the media and movies, and I mean, I've been married for, for many years, 23, I think, this year. But regardless, but still, like, out of my fraction of my life, that's a really small amount of time.
Yes. Yeah.
And I do think that would help with people, just like, maybe
It's a different
the way
perspective,
we
right? And
look
I
at it
think
is that takes
that's
away
what you
some of
have to
that guilt
kind of
and
look at.
shame. Just look
Yeah.
at it from that perspective and be
Yeah.
like, yes, you're human, and these things happen,
Yeah.
and there's
And
so much.
just made a
Yeah.
huge decision. You made a huge, and the other
Yeah.
thing I would say to women too, going through, like, back to the abundance mindset, is really that in a nutshell to me is something is happening. You have the perception that something's happening for you versus to you. That's the difference of like a lack and limitation versus abundance. And this could be really critical for people going through divorce, because it would be really easy to get into lack and limitation, right? It would be really easy to
Mhm.
think you're a victim of these circumstances, and especially when you have this volatility and emotion and all the things, and maybe your ex is being a complete, all the things. So how is this happening for you? Right? Because you're going to come out of the other side of this a stronger human. There's no doubt about that with what you have to go through, right? So
Mhm.
why is that happening? Why is it
Yes.
happening now? Like, those are all just different perspectives, where it's not like, it's like, no, this is going to make me stronger. This is happening for me. I have to make all these decisions. And honestly, the work you guys are doing, you guys first reached out, I thought, oh my gosh, what a service. Like, I hope people are taking you up left, right, and center, because this is such an important milestone and decision and time in someone's life. You should not be going at this alone. There's no
No,
way,
not
right?
at all. And, in line with what you said, on the, because I'm a big believer in, things are happening for you, not to you. And there's also, it's like, listen, in we all, right? All humans go through difficult periods and
Yes.
struggles and things. And I think the key is also don't lose the lesson. Like it may
Yes.
not be present today, but it's going to show up for you. And if you're
Mhm.
there, if you're ready to receive it, it's going to help you in the future. I do
Exactly.
believe.
Exactly. And it's one of the laws. It's the law of polarity. You cannot have light without dark. You can't
Yes.
have up without down. It's how the universe works, right? So nobody ever said everything was always going to be blissful. So when you're in a low
Right.
state or a contrast, like a divorce, well, we all know from a success perspective, you do not learn anything from succeeding. You learn a lot. And I don't even like the word failure, because I don't believe in failure. I think it's only there's feedback, but you learn when things don't go the way you want them to, you learn way more.
You do.
To your point, if
Yeah.
you're open to receive it.
Correct. You have to, it's always there. It's just
Yeah.
whether or not you're open to it. I agree. Now, okay, so that's such good stuff. And I think it really, hopefully for our listeners, you can hear this and just, even if it's just a reframe
Yeah.
on your situation, that in and of itself, if you just begin to think about it a little differently, it's going to make such a big difference.
Mhm.
But okay, how do you keep focused on your career or running a business while you're going through a divorce?
Yeah, I mean, that is not easy for sure, right? Because there's this whole thing going on over here that wasn't before. But I think it comes back to designing it again. Like, what is it that
Mhm.
you want this? Not only do you the end state, but the process up to the end state, right? So you do have a life. You still have children that you're dealing with, and there's so
Yeah.
much newness going on. Maybe they're going back and forth to different houses, or maybe everybody's selling houses, by all the things that you have to do. But I think you just have to almost, for me, I think I would compartmentalize and just say, okay, this business is not going to be impacted if I'm a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, right? Or I have my career. You still have to work. You
Right.
still have to go to work. You still have to either, whether it's your own business or a job job, right? So, how do you want that to look? Do you want to, have to drag yourself there? Do you want that to be mixing in over there? Design it. Design how
Mhm.
you're going to have these two either separate or work together, or however it's going to look for you, and just show up every day practicing being that person, right? And then I would say too, a big thing in there would be boundaries, right? You would like, as a coach, I would be talking to them about boundaries. So, no, it's not okay for your ex-husband to call you in the middle of the day because he wants to talk about, the next attorney appointment or whatever, if you're at work. Like, set some
Mhm.
boundaries of when you can talk about this, when you can get together, when you can communicate, when you can't. Because, and what would he want as well, right? Like, he should say the
Yeah.
same thing so that they both honor each other. Like, I just don't think that you cannot not go through this. It doesn't have to be turmoil if
Correct.
you don't want it to be, right?
Mhm.
So again, you can't control that other person. So if they're acting like this, you kind of have to deal with that. But hopefully you could get into a situation where you're both coming to the table with, this is what's going to work for me and this is what's going to work for me.
Mhm.
But the bottom line is, you can't stop working.
Right. Now let me ask you this, because it's, on one hand, you're running your own business, you feel like, well, I work 24/7, but then you work for an employer. Have you ever advised, going in line with, designing this divorce, but have you ever advised, because I think there could be an opportunity where you feel, or a situation where you feel a little unsafe, like you don't really want to disclose your personal business to your bosses, your supervisors, but you need some time, right? You need a little more
Mhm.
time in the mornings. Maybe you just need a different schedule because there have been so much change that you're recognizing, in order to focus on work, I just need to either leave a little early or come in early, come in late, so that I have some time to separate. And how would you advise somebody? Because, the things we're telling them, like, maybe they do need to set some boundaries, or now they're in charge of pickup where they weren't before, or drop off. I'm just relating this to the children. And they have, they've got to come up with maybe a way for their job to help them manage their new schedule.
Yeah. So I think, the first thing I'm going to put my HR hat on.
Okay, good.
I for sure would, if somebody came, I would for sure, the first step would be to try to get them to, or facilitate a conversation with their direct boss. Now, if they have, the boss from hell or whatever, and it's not great, you can always go to HR. And we had tons of people come in and ask us this, like, and I'll tell you, my experience is when you give an inch, they will give you a mile, meaning accommodate them. They are going through a very difficult time right now. If you can, right? Like there's certain roles that everybody had, like, one of the organizations I work for, we managed outsourced call centers. Well, those were shifts, but there were things they could do. Like we let them work a little overtime so they could bank some time to take this time off over here. And always a solution. Right. So, I mean, I know it's easy for me to say that, and not every organization is really conciliatory that way. So that would be decisions you'd have to make. Right. Because I do think that it can be challenging, right? If you're in these new situations and you've got to pick up your kids and you've got to do these things, you can't just leave them there. Right. So HR
would be it is a good place to start, because theoretically that is a safe place where you should be able to talk to somebody, and that even just that talk shouldn't really impact your job.
The keyword should. You're right.
If
you were coming into my department, that is exactly what would happen. I'm not going to lie and say that that's the case everywhere, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if you could ever get into a situation where you make a change in your job, but that would be more change in the midst of change, which would be difficult. But yes, theoretically, if you're working for a great organization, yes, HR should be neutral and confidential and accommodating where they can.
Right. Because I do think, there's going to be a lot of listeners, and that they're wondering, okay, well, to design my divorce, I need, a little bit of extra time, and, with, where I'm working, how do I have that conversation? So I appreciate that, because at least they know it should be, and investigate, because the workplace you're in, right? You hear through the grapevine, you can find out, is this going to be something
HR could help conciliate? Like if you're not comfortable speaking to your boss, they could help, like set up a meeting. They could be there with you or whatever. I mean, I hate when I hear those stories, because that's just a poor leader on the other side. Right. And as a leadership coach, it kind of drives me nuts, but it happened all the time. Right. So they definitely should be able to help you.
Now, you have spoken about the 4 must-dos. So I'd love I think we kind of touched on a lot of it, but I'd like it condensed maybe for our listeners, those 4 must-dos.
Yeah. So these are my must-dos to succeed. This is what I talk about from a success perspective. So yeah, definitely apply this to your divorce, right? Or anything. The first one, the most successful people that I've ever worked with, and I've seen it out in the world too, do these 4 things regularly. So the first one is a balance between the masculine and feminine energy. So what does that mean? Masculine energy, this is not male or female, by the way, for your listeners at all. I have spent the majority of my career very, very masculine, in very, very masculine energy, because masculine energy is action. That's doing, that's getting the ball down the field and across the field line. That's what we do as executives, right? Planning, strategic, all that. That's all masculine. So they get that. They get the do. This is all the things I have to do to get through my divorce, right? But who do you want to be? And who do you need to be? The B is feminine energy. So that's somebody who is going to get the courage to go talk to HR, right? And is going to maybe get a little morning routine for 15 minutes where they meditate or they journal and just really set their day and the intention so that they don't fly off the handle in the midst of this divorce or whatever, right? So feminine energy is visualization when you're designing it in your mind, journaling, meditating, really those sort of, I call them warm and fuzzy side of things, right? And it's who you're being is the feminine energy, and what you're doing is the masculine energy. So the first must have is balance both. Now, most ambitious driven women, especially ones that are coming out of corporate, are way over in their masculine almost 24/7, right? They don't spend a lot of time really on themselves and journaling and all the things, right? So success, you have both. You have a real great mix of both. You can get stuff done, but you also know who you want to show up and who you're going to be. The second one is the most successful people, especially entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, they're committed to the long term. They have shut the back door. They're making this work no matter what, right? So this is not I'll see how this goes and I'll try this entrepreneur thing or this network marketing thing or whatever. And then if it doesn't work, I'll go back to a job. No, they're in it. And they do what it takes. And in the short, so that's long term, but in the short term, they take very inspired action. And when I say inspired action, I mean very effective action that moves the ball down the field, not passive action where, as an entrepreneur, there's 4 things that you need to be doing, right? You got to generate leads. You need to nurture your leads. You need to make offers to them. And when they become employees, you need to give them really great customer service. And that should be 80% of your day. But that, all the other stuff falls into the 20%. So they get that, right? And then the last must is you have to succeed, especially as an entrepreneur, you need an abundant mindset. Because in my business, we call it your noisy roommate. Okay. So that's the doubts and the limiting. And of course, this would be loud for a woman going through divorce, right? Your doubts, your noise, or your limiting beliefs, your fears, the what ifs, right? How loud can she get in your head? And then she takes over, right? So when you want success, let's say a successful divorce, you've designed it on the front end and you've learned to manage your noisy roommate. You've really learned to quiet her down and spend more time in your abundant mindset versus your lack and limitation. And that's that goes across the board in anything in success, right? We know this is what takes us out. Especially if you're, if you're scaling to 6, 7, 8 figures, they know how to run a business. It's this that takes them out, right?
Right.
It's this that stops. So it could be the same with divorce, right? This is where they'll go, oh, I'm just going to concede. I can't do this anymore, right? That's the noisy roommate going, I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can. You can do it. If you surround yourself with the right support and you tap into others' beliefs, if you don't have it for yourself, right? That's what we mean about that. So those are the 4 musts to succeed.
And those are great. And they completely apply to the divorce situation, because it's such a major life event that does affect all areas of your life. So really you want to have your plan for how you're going to get through that without falling apart.
Yes.
For sure. Now you do speak on the concept of every strategy works. It's just finding the one that's right for you. And I do think the same is true for divorce, selecting the right method, attorney strategy, et cetera, et cetera. What is your advice for finding that strategy and finding what works for you? How do you figure that out?
Well, yeah. So that again,
in less than 20 years, right?
Yeah. So the first thing is knowing they all work. So I always use health in this example with women that I work with, think of a weight loss strategy. So lots of women can relate to this, right? So why is it we've got all these big vendors, right? Jenny Craig, all the things, right? Billions and billions of dollars in that industry. Why is it that I would say every one of those weight loss strategies work? Well, the reason I'd say that is because we have external proof. There's been a bazillion people used it and lost the weight. The key is, how come there's a certain percentage that keep it off and a certain percentage that gain it all back? It's not the weight loss strategy. We've proven that they both lost the weight. The strategy worked for both of them. It stuck on one and it didn't on another. And the reason why is because the one that it didn't stick with did nothing to change her identity. It's identity work. And this is really important for women
Ooh.
going through a divorce, because you're going to be a married woman to a single woman. You are literally changing everything about you as your identity from a marriage perspective, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same with lottery winners. So why is it that we hear people who win especially the big Powerballs in the US, right? Like, and 2 years later, they're broke. They did nothing to change their wealth identity, or consciousness is another way to say it. So what identity do you want to have as a single woman, as a single mother, right? Because you're now changing. So the strategy of divorce works because 50 to 60% of the world are divorced. And there's been lots of people who've gone through divorce successfully,
Right.
whatever that definition is for them, right? With
Exactly.
respect,
Yeah.
and amicable. And they, because especially if you have children, you're stuck with this person, right? You're co-parenting now. You're going to
Right.
things when they're 25 or whatever the case. Like, so
Yeah.
what identity? It's an identity thing, right? So the strategy of divorce. So once you go, okay, this is who I want to be. Like, again, this is how I'm designing. This is who I want to be as a single mother or a single woman. This is who I want to be going through my divorce. Go find a strategy that matches that. Right? So if you want to be conciliatory, maybe you need a certain type of mediation. Maybe you need a certain type of attorney. It isn't
Exactly.
going to be
Right.
like, right? Like, if you want to go all guns a-blazing, then make sure you have matching of that. But it's back to whatever you want, because every strategy works. And to have that strategy stick the way you want it to go, change your identity to match it. Don't be the woman that's I'm going to take him down if that's not what you want. Right? Come at it in your meetings with your attorneys, in your mediations, in everything that has to happen as that woman with that identity. So hopefully that makes sense, because it's so many people blame the strategy, right? Or the attorney or the judge or the whatever. None of those are the issue if it didn't go the way you wanted it to go.
Right. And
You didn't, and I feel, and not so much the output, but more how you feel through the process.
yeah, and I love that, because I've certainly talked about that before, because it does your identity, and that can be so difficult for women because they've been the stay-at-home mom, and now who are they going to be? Like, what does this look like? Who am I? I have attached so much of who I am as this mom.
Exactly.
And it's like, now it's there, but he may be with the kids 50% of the time. So who am I the other 50% of the time? And I know it's a struggle. So I know we've talked about that on the show, but I've never had anybody say, you got to figure out what you want that identity to be. And you've got to design it. And that is really brilliant. Okay. So then I've got to ask you this. What if you don't want to change, but it's changing, right? It's happening. Like, you're like, I don't, and many, I think that, probably both men and women, we represent women. There is certainly, I have met many women at the very beginning. They're like, I don't want this. This is not my choice, but
yes,
this is happening. It's no fault. Like, he's filed. I don't want this. And I know that is a real struggle because they don't want to change their identity, but it is going to happen. Could you give me give our listeners some advice? Like, what do you do with that?
I'm so glad you asked that, because I was thinking this. What I would say to someone if I was coaching them, and that just what you just said to me, you have not always been a wife in your life, and you have not always been a mother. So I'm going to go a little woo-woo here.
Okay. I love it. Go for it.
We are not our minds, and we are not our bodies. We have spirits. We all have souls, right? We came to this earth. We have a soul. We are a spiritual being in a human body with an intellectual mind having a human experience. Okay. That's, you can believe it or not. Whatever you believe to be true will be your truth. But the point is that you have not always been a mother, and you have not always been a wife. So what was your identity before all that happened? Like, who was Heather or who was Julie? Like, it's not who we are. It's what we do. We're moms, we're
Yeah.
wives, we're executives, we're attorneys. It's what we do. It's not who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So I would ask them, who are you? And women come to me because I have lots of people in my practice too that are going through divorce, but also friends. And they say, Julie, oh my God, I've lost myself. I'm like, no, you haven't. She is in there. You just have to go find her.
Right.
You have to find who you really are, because all of these things that you put on here are labels that you have put. It is not your identity. Like, if you ask me, who am I would not tell you I'm a mother. A lot of women would go right away.
Yeah.
I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a single mother, whatever. That's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's in your soul? What's your soul stand for, right? How do you, that's where I would tell them to go. Go find the original or the remembered Heather or Julie, because there is a version of you outside of all this.
Right.
And that's like, for me, I would describe, I am a woman who understands fully that her purpose on this world is to help other women lead. That's who I am. If you said to me, Julie, what's the one thing you could to describe yourself, your identity?
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy for me, Heather. It's a leader. And anyone who knows me will tell you she was born a leader. I was born a leader. My mom will tell you, my dad, my brothers, I'm the youngest in my family. That is the gift that I have to bring to this world. So that's what I would say to your listeners is, what is the gift that you have to bring to this world? And part of it is motherhood, for sure. I'm a mother. I have 2 kids, but it's not, you weren't always a mother. So you can't tell me that you didn't have a gift from 0 to the time you became a mother or a wife, right?
Right.
They have lost their identity a bit because they identify as a mother and a wife. But I would say to them, no, that's not your identity. That's just part of who you are. There's another gift in there that you're meant to bring to the world. And maybe that's the whole reason why you're going through this process, is you're supposed to go find what that gift is.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is really helpful. Thank you so much. I'm gonna suggest all of our clients, potential clients, listen to this, because so many find themselves in right what we were just discussing. And you said it perfectly. Maybe that is why you're going there, so that you can go find out who you are and what
gifts you were brought
gifts you brought. Yep.
That
To
you're
bring and
supposed to be
share.
delivering to the world, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is so amazing. And I love that, because as we know, women going through a divorce, they just struggle in so many different areas. And that again goes to the abundance, to the mindset. Like, there is something that, positive that's going to come out of this.
Yeah.
You just got to look for it and be open to it. But it'll be
you're
there.
going through it. There's a reason. There's a reason in everything. Right.
And everything.
And it's so hard to see it when you're in it. I get it.
I know.
If you know that and go, okay, I'm going to hold on to this and it's going to come to me. You'd be surprised actually how fast it goes when you get into that mindset.
Yeah, I believe you. I do. Well, I can't believe our time has flown by so quickly.
Already. Wow.
I know. What a great conversation. I feel inspired, and I took a bunch of notes while I was listening. It helps me listen when I write it down, and sticks with me, but it was just wonderful. And, but before we leave though, you've given us so much great tips and so much, advice, but if you could, impart on our listeners, what you've learned about working with women, over your years that you could give to us and our listeners.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the same, women and men, but I believe so strongly that when women support women, we move mountains. It's a cornerstone of my business. So get into a community. If you're going through this, whatever that is, like a Facebook group, a program like Heather's running, like, do not go at this alone. First of all, you're not alone. What's the percentage now, Heather? Right. 60, 65%. And that goes back to our whole conversation around, should we be married for so long? But there's a lot of people going through a version of what you're going through. So don't feel shame. Don't try try. I know this is easy for me to say, but try to not make it so personal and so emotional. You're going to have emotions. I get that. But get into a group where people understand what you're going through and can support you, and you can tap into their belief, because you're going to get through this. And listen,
Yes.
you've made a huge, huge life decision, like one of the biggest. These would be in the top 5, right? Of decisions you make in your life. So don't ever tell yourself you're not a decision maker, because you just made a huge one. And go through the process. And just like we said, know that this is happening for you. This is happening for you. So pull out your journal. I tell my clients they can't come into my program without a journal, and just write and write and write when you're feeling certain ways. And what is supposed to be happening, where the journey you're on, this is part of the journey. And where the journey is going to go next will come. It will, I promise you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Such great discussion today. And, but lastly, where can our listeners find you for more information and resources?
Yeah, sure. So you can always go to my website, which is juliecober.com. From a social media platform perspective, I'm on them all. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So that's, you can just search Julie Cober, or Instagram is at Mrs. Julie Cober. And I'm on Facebook too, but that's regular Julie Cober. But those are the 2 big ones I spend most of my time on. So yeah, you can come check out anything in there.
Well, we will definitely put the links in our show notes for our listeners. And we thank you so much. We have reached the end of our show today. And we're so appreciative of Julie for sharing her time and, helping us talk about how to design your dream divorce. And listeners, if you or someone you know is going through a divorce or is thinking about a divorce, please reach out to us at floridawomensLawGroup.com. Or if you're looking for a community and support, join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce. Links will be in the episode description. And as always, we would love your feedback and reviews if you enjoyed this show. Thank you so much. Are you facing the challenges of divorce and feeling overwhelmed? Introducing Divorce 101, your essential online course designed to empower you through the divorce process. I'm Heather Quick, attorney and CEO at Florida Women's Law Group. Gain confidence and clarity with expert guidance on legalities, financial considerations, and your emotional well-being. We believe in empowering you to navigate this journey with strength and knowledge. Enroll in Divorce 101 today and take control of your future. As a valued podcast listener, you will get $100 off the course. So please see the show notes for the promo code and the link. You can also find out more at floridawomensLawGroup.com, or always call us at 904-567-0121. Divorce for women, by women.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Women Winning Divorce. My goal is to elevate your life and the way you are thinking so that you are best equipped to win at life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. And I would love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social and join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce. We welcome your comments and suggestions. We want to bring you content that helps move your life forward. Women Winning Divorce is the place for an elevated conversation on how women can thrive during times of adversity in order to live their best life.